The next one is going to be TinOne. Even smaller company, $9.5 million Canadian, over in Toronto, that's TORC. And over here in Frankfurt, that's 57ZO. I cannot get used to these ticker symbols over here in Frankfurt. I don't know what that's up. But they hope to grow through developing their advanced stage sandstone gold project in Tasmania. So this is a company with projects in Australia, as you're about to hear. But they're also looking and hoping to grow their exposure to tin in Australia as well. So with that said, I will welcome Mr. Chris Donaldson over here, their executive chairman. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys. My name is Chris Donaldson. I'm the executive chairman, as mentioned. And as our name suggests, we have a basket of tin projects in Tasmania in Australia. I will be making some forward-looking statements, so please read this if you are going to make an investment. So today I'll talk a little bit about our projects that we have. We really are focused on two of them right now. They're tin assets in Tasmania, about 20 minutes apart. So there's a tin story that we have, and just in the last 2 months, we've made a lithium find, which is quite interesting as well. So it'll be kind of two stories that we go through. We're in an area that is a past producing tin district that halted advancement in the 80s. So we're kind of resurrecting that. We love Tasmania. I was down there a month ago. We're in a very good part of Tasmania to be exploring and potentially building a mine. We've got the dominant land position in the northeast of the state. I'm going to talk a little bit about the tin market. This is a gold conference, so I'm not sure how many people follow tin. It's one of the more interesting of all the metals, actually. Price fluctuates quite wildly with various kind of factors that affect it. We'll get into that. Then I'll talk a little bit about the team that we have. We're backed by a group called Inventa Capital, which has had quite a bit of success taking little companies like ours and growing them up, and in some cases into the billions. I've been talking a lot today, so I got a little bit of a raspy voice. Some housekeeping here. We've got about 80 million shares out. We're fairly tightly held, mostly with insiders and advisors who are close to the Inventa Capital group. We've been listed for about 2 years now. If you look at our share price, to understand that action, you kind of have to understand a little bit of what happened with the tin price. The tin price was on one of the greatest trajectories for about 2 years, peaking at 51,000 a ton in March of last year. Everybody, or people started really paying attention to the tin market. We started our drilling program, and I said, make sure let's get a second rig going, and everything was flying high. And then the tin market it just fell apart. China, and it was because of China. China is a net importer of tin. Their factories were not at capacity due to COVID, so they flooded the market, and that all-time high tin price went from 51,000 a ton down to 17,000 a ton in November. And since November, it's rebounded actually quite well. They started importing again. A couple of things have happened. There's been some mine closures. In fact, in February, it bounced right back and got over 32,000 a ton. Right now, I think we're sitting about 27,000 a ton, which is the incentive price for new projects. Okay. So what got us into this mess here? About 5 years ago, we read a report by MIT, and it indicated that tin was actually going to be the metal most impacted by electrification. And so our chairman, Craig Perry, whose father actually was a tin miner, started staking some land in and around his house, his childhood home in New South Wales, and then found some projects in Tasmania. And we've got this at a time when nobody really was paying attention to the tin market. So that was the reason why we acquired it. The fundamentals of the tin market are very strong over the long term. I liken it to The copper market, a lot of the same type of fundamentals. It's just a fraction of a percent of the size of the copper market. The main use of tin is in solder, so it's really the glue that holds batteries and conductors together. The demand forecast is anticipated to be about 4% growth for the next decade or so. What's more interesting, though, is what's happening on the supply side. 80% or almost 80% of the supply comes from Myanmar, Indonesia, China, and DRC, areas that are often considered a bit dubious. And with the narrative going on right now, getting critical metals from, quote unquote, good jurisdictions, you're starting to see restarts of old projects like ours in Australia and also here in Europe. And the case for tin is now. We saw it starting 3 years ago. There was a disruption. I really feel that we're going to get back up and exceed those all-time highs over the next while. It's just because it's such a small market, there are certain factors, policy changes really affect the price of tin. For instance, Myanmar, which is a very high-grade producer and exports 95% of what they have to China, just in the last couple of weeks said they're going to curtail their supply. And so that'll have an effect. Indonesia in September, they've threatened to shut off exports, and we'll see if that happens as well. So let's get into our portfolio of assets there. I'm going to talk about Great Pyramid first, and then I'll talk about Aberfoyle. All three of our projects, we also have another one called Rattler Range, are in the northeast of Tasmania. We like Tasmania. Tasmania is used to tin mining. The second biggest tin mine in the world that Metals X owns is in Tasmania. We're in an area that is currently zoned for future commercial production. So if you put your lens on, is this something that can be built? Certainly a clearer pathway than most towards actually being able to build a mine. In the case of Great Pyramid, it's actually a previously forested area. You can drive right up on top of the deposit. We were there last month and we were able to view what we had there. The Great Pyramid project is basically a hill, and it has a historical resource on it. You see from the block model that the resource, 95%, is within the top 40 meters. So it has 10,000 tons of contained tin, or 5 million tons at a 0.2% grade. And to put that in context, you see in the green, it's very small. The grade is not bad for open pit. That's a collection of open pit projects and producers. So we are trying to make it bigger. And so we've just completed 5,000 meters of drilling on the project with the goal to prove out the historical resource, check at depth, and also laterally. And we were very successful in that. We've released all the drill results so far. We found mineralization down at about 250, 300 meters. Our best intercept was from surface down 80 meters at a grade of 0.51. So twice as deep, 2.5 times the grade. So it was quite successful. So where are we at now is what we're trying to do is update that resource. And that's going to take us the next few months. We're hoping to get it to look like Taronga, which is a project in New South Wales in Australia that sold just under 2 years ago for $35 million. So we're hoping to get a re-rating once we update the resource, if we're able to get it into that range. At the time Taronga sold, it was 27,000 contained tons. After the drilling, still open in all directions and at depth, so quite a bit more drilling that we'll do even after we update the resource. So our second project is called Aberfoyle, and this is where things kind of got interesting here. Aberfoyle is a past tin and tungsten producing district, produced over 2 million tons of tin and tungsten up until the mid-'80s. All the infrastructure is still there, minus the processing facilities. But when they were producing, they really didn't do any modern exploration. They were chasing these high-grade veins. So we wanted to do some mapping, or did some mapping and soil sampling. In that process, we did multi-element testing and discovered lithium. Now, everybody and their dog is trying to get into the lithium game over the last year. We're very cognizant of that. So we sent out for additional assays. They came back, they were positive. We engaged the university to help us understand really what we had there. They were excited because this is 4 times higher than any grades they've ever had in Tasmania. Minerals Resources Tasmania helped us analyze and is helping us analyze the rocks that we have. So initially we had these composite samples. We then went back and did targeted sampling and sampled over 1% lithium, with the bulk of them over about 0.5%. And this is lithium hosted in micas, which is not as common. It's more common in Europe. They do produce in China this way. The average grade of the 7 projects that are at least feasibility stage right now is kind of 0.2 to 0.7%. So our grades are pretty good. Where we're at right now is we've sampled an area that's about a square kilometer. Our project, Great Pyramid itself, is 96 square kilometers, so quite a large area. We also have a third project called Rattler Range, which has a similar type of rocks. One thing that's interesting about the project is, you know, we ended up staking land right next to us as soon as we found this out. We also discovered that a major has also staked some land just about 30 kilometers from us as well. So pretty excited about that. Of course, we still have tin in the area. We're getting some good tin samples coming out of the project as well. But what this does is give us some options. And the reality is it's easier to raise money on the lithium front than it is the tin front. We really want to see if we have scale here. If we can prove out that we have scale in the project, I can't emphasize what a good area this is. This is a past-producing district with all the infrastructure in place in the #1 lithium-producing country in the world. So our third project is Rattler Range. It's 36 square kilometers. We haven't done much work on that, but we did go back and found that they had sampled some lithium back in the 80s on that project as well. So this is another one that we are sampling. So what we've done right now, we've completed our drilling at Great Pyramid. We're in the process of updating that resource. Hope to get a re-rating within a few months. We're going to continue to sample at Aberfoyle. We'll have more results coming out in the next couple of weeks on that. So quite a bit of news flow coming forward. If you were to invest in today, I would say the value on that is underpinned by the re-rate that we should get. We have a direct comparable on that Taronga project. 35 million is not a lot of money, but when we're starting at a 10 million market cap, that's still a 3x from where we're at today. And if our lithium pans out, you look at a lot of the comps in that space, and they're at 50, 100 million market cap. So it should be an exciting few months for us. Yeah, how do I go back? Oh, you already got rid of me. So 80, I had a slide on it. 80 million shares that are out, fully diluted, just about 100 million on that. And what was the other question, sorry?
Warrants and cash.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number. Are we able to back it up? If you have the presentation, it's on slide 3, Liz, there. Yeah, so the last reported cash is about $1.5 million. We will have to top up to do our next program. The cost of updating the resource is about $300,000. We have just under $1 million on that. We'd like to do another $1 million worth approximately of drilling on Great Pyramid. Fortunately, the sampling on Aberfoyle doesn't take a lot of cash. So if we do a raise, it'll be, I'm going to say, about $2 million. So we did. They're at 20 cents.
And do you have a sort of burn rate?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it scales with how much we're doing. Right now, it's quite low. We have that because we're not drilling. Sampling is very low. Just our G&A is about $80,000 a month on that. Yeah, so I mean, we don't have to do a raise tomorrow, but we'll likely do something in not too distant future.
And your aim is to get bought?
Yeah, I think you know, we'll see what happens there. I think what we like to do is prove out the update the resource, do the additional drilling, see if we have scale on the lithium side. Look at that point to bring in a larger group, a strategic investor for a toehold, and then hopefully get bought out.
Who would buy you?
Yeah, I mean, there's Metals X is a, you know, I don't know, I'm not foreshadowing that, but then there are tin producers out there. There are smelters in Japan that are very, very active right now, and then there's small investment companies that are, you know, and miners that we've already had discussions with. It's also, this is not like a copper mine. If you look at Taronga, for instance, they've done a feasibility study. It was 75 million capex to build the project. So it's something that within our basket of companies we could do if we get to that.
Thank you, Mr. Frisbee, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.